How we doing, everybody? It's your guy Wardy here. It's 4th of July 2025 at the time of this video dropping, and a very happy Independence Day to each and every one of you. I'm obviously smiling cheek to cheek, and if you're wondering, Wardy, why exactly is that? That's because the boys finally won themselves a series that we broke down this past night. If you guys want to check out our post-game coverage that we broke down the key takeaways from the Mets 3-2 series victory over the Brewers, make sure to do so after watching this one, because we have so much updates and news to get into at Mets land. It's honestly not even funny. So get yourself ready, guys, because we have to get into the latest acquisition for the Mets as they've officially signed Zach Pop there to a major league contract. Who is Zach Pop? What do you need to know about his game? What is his immediate impact to this Mets team? How long will he stay with this club potentially, and everything else in between? From there, we're also going to get into David Stearns, as he and Carlos Mendoza alike had some key remarks that they shared with the media over this past day, not only on the front for their rotation, looking ahead into that Subway series that we will preview before wrapping up the show. And yes, I gotta be honest, I do not love how those pitching matchups are going to be, and it goes in direct hand with the fact that Paul Blackburn is facing the injured list yet again, everybody. Not only is Paul Blackburn back on the shelf, but Daniel Nunez's season looks like it may unfortunately be coming already to an end. We'll get into all the latest on the health front for those key players, as we will with a very positive update regarding Senga, Sean Manaea, Jesse Winker, and everyone else that has been on the injured list to this point, everybody. And we have some key prospects to break down, headlined by McLean, dominating yet again with another strong start there for AAA Syracuse. So we're going to give you guys the latest farm report all the way from Port St. Lucie, working it way up there to AAA Syracuse and everything in between again. So again, guys, get yourself ready, sit back, relax, enjoy the ride, which is our latest Big Mets update segment. But thank you guys kindly, as always, for hitting that like and subscribe on your way, and it's greatly appreciated. And let me know all your initial reactions in the comments down below to the following topics that we're going to break down today. And as always, shout out to our amazing sponsor at Moomoo, the official trading platform of the New York Mets. Hey Mets fans, if you love diving deep into the numbers like WAR or ERA, then you absolutely are going to love what today's video sponsor Moomoo brings to your investing game. Think Moneyball, but this time for your portfolio. I'm beyond excited to share that Moomoo, the proud trading platform of the New York Mets, is here to level up your investing. Moomoo is a global trading platform currently serving over 25 million users in markets like the United States, Canada, Singapore, and Japan. Whether you're just starting out or if you're a more seasoned trader, Moomoo's app and desktop platform offers commission-free trading on stocks, ETFs, and options, no contract fees either. So plus, you get premium tools, guys, whether it's going to be the institutional grade analytics, Morningstar research, and analyst ratings, all free for funded users. And right now, Moomoo is doubling down for Mets fans. Sign up through my exclusive link down below, make a qualifying deposit, and get up to, yes, 60 free stocks, plus not one but two Mets Suite tickets. Not to mention, Moomoo customers can get free tickets to all Monday home games at Citi Field, and who knows, you may even see me at a game. And with zero commissions and zero contract fees on stock and ETF options, you keep more of your wins. Are you guys ready to trade smarter? Download Moomoo now and swing for the financial fences. And shout out once more to Moomoo for being an amazing sponsor here on the platform. Alrighty, folks, to kickstart today's conversation, let's get into the news that initially dropped over the past 24 hours, which has everything to do with the latest bullpen acquisition for this New York Metropolitan team. As yes, David Stearns did in fact sign to a major league contract, that being in veteran southpaw Mr. Zach Pop, formerly that we've seen with teams like the Toronto Blue Jays and the Seattle Mariners. So as you guys can see here, what do you guys need to know on Mr. Zach Pop? We'll let Wardy go ahead and enlighten you as we're going to pull this up. So apologies for the lack of graphic for a second, guys. But as you guys can see here, what you need to know about Zach Pop? Well, this is a interesting pickup to say the least. And I say interesting fairly loosely because of the fact that when you look at the immediate numbers for Zach Pop, and what I will say is just a 5-inning sample size so far this season, I mean, buddy's horrendous. He has over a 13 ERA in just 5 innings with the Seattle Mariners this year, leading him to be designated for assignment. So in a very David Stearns fashion, the same David Stearns that threw out 16 pitchers in a 17-game stretch for this Mets team just a couple days ago up until this point. He's had new relievers in there every single day, it feels like. It looks like that's going to be the case yet again. Because remember, guys, the Mets signed Dickie Lovelady initially there to a major league contract. Now they're doing it here with Zach Pop. And Zach Pop does have some pop in the sense of his potential, but to expect Zach Pop to hit his potential with the Mets. Probably gonna be more wishful thinking than anything else. Zach Pop right now is just more than anything another arm to be thrown into this mix of reliever options. Basically see what he has when the Mets are currently in dire need of obviously relief help, and as many guys be stretched as possible given their doubleheader from a couple nights ago, and just being absolutely worked left, right, and center throughout the past 2.5, 3 weeks now, because no starter in their rotation really up until we got from David Pearson this past night has been able to go beyond the 5th inning. I kid you not. No Mets starter up until David Pearson just a night ago that we saw went 6+ innings for the Mets in a 3+ week span. That's horrendous, and that's going to be a big demise for your bullpen. And Zach Pop, as we're showing you guys right now to expand a little bit more on him, what you guys need to know is as follows. He currently has a 13.5 ERA, as I mentioned, just 5 innings. Last season, however, with the Toronto Blue Jays in 48 innings, he had himself a 5.59 ERA with a 4.5 expected ERA. You know, not loving the K to walk ratio from a 6 strikeout per 9 to 3.5 walks per 9. The year before that, though, he was, in my opinion, more productive, at least in that limited sample size in Toronto. 13 innings, 9.2 K per 9, 3.95 walks per 9. ERA was inflated. Expected numbers weren't all that great. But what we look at in Zach Pop is really the standout season that he had back in 2022. This comes after a 4 ERA season and 54 innings there for the Miami Marlins. You guys remember Zach Pop plenty during his time in Miami. I know I certainly do. But then in 2022, in 39 innings of 5.7 K per 9, a huge drop-off from the year prior, but an absurd sub-1 walks per 9, leading to that 2.77 ERA and 3.36 expected ERA. Zach Pop has not really been a productive reliever in Major League Baseball over the past couple seasons, but knowing that the Mets are just in dire need of more arms than anything else to see what upside he has is ultimately why David Stearns made this decision. But I completely understand all the counters I'm going to get from you Mets fans, which is the following. I am done with David Stearns throwing out a bunch of nobodies into this Mets bullpen. And to that, I agree with you. I wholeheartedly agree with you, everybody. And I am looking forward to the Mets potentially considering some of their in-house options, because the Mets have some unbelievably talented flamethrowing type relievers that are either stored in AA or AAA right now, but they still have a bit more seasoning to do before the Mets really go to the lengths to consider them at the Major League level, understandably so. And there's one reliever in particular that we're going to highlight later in this video, that being in Douglas Orellana, who is a fantastic option that the Mets have in the minor leagues that has now reached AAA Syracuse in a promotion this past day. So we're going to break down more in his game here shortly, but he's just one of endless examples of guys that have truly plus stuff at the AAA Syracuse level now, but given their lack of overall experience, the Mets are not going to really deep dive too far in there, and that is what we're getting right now. So Zach Pop, everybody, put a pin in it. What are you getting in him? What you're getting is just immediate right-handed arm that can hopefully eat some innings for you, be productive, has Major League experience going back the past number of years, has had success, has also had not so much success either, so we'll see what he provides. Obviously, you can see the stuff can play what is right there in Pop. He has some velo to him, and he has some things that I'm honestly not hating when I'm looking at from these highlights right now, but can he do it at all on a fairly consistent basis? Can he be able to eat some innings for this Mets team upcoming in their Subway Series matchup where they have batting practice galore based on their pitching matchups on paper? You know, we'll soon find out, everybody. But whether you're for or against Zach Pop, or quite frankly don't care, whatever your thoughts are, let's hear it in the comments down below, and thank you guys kindly for that. But going on from talking about Zach Pop, everybody, let's now get on to talking more about this Mets team, and in particular, let's break down more on the pitching end, because as we know, pitching-wise has been both a blessing and a curse for this Mets team this season. And the reason why I say that is because this Mets pitching has been a stronghold for them that we saw in their first couple months of the season, being the best team in all Major League Baseball in their collective team ERA. However, over the past 2.5, 3 weeks, the Mets have had the worst overall pitching staff in baseball based on team ERA, bullpen ERA, rotation ERA. They have been absolutely bad in practice, which is why it's important to see what the Mets are going to be getting in their key arms. But folks, we do have some updates regarding their key arms of both Kodai Senga and Nunez I got to share with each and every one of you. Some good, some bad. As you guys can see here, as we see, again, I'm not loving this news in general. I mean, how can you? The latter is what I'm not loving, but the first part I'm loving a lot, and that's Kodai Senga. Great news for Kodai, everybody. He is expected to begin his rehab assignment there in AA as soon as this weekend. And the most encouraging part about this regarding Kodai Senga, everybody, is that there's a belief that Senga may actually only need just one rehab start before returning to this Mets team. And that's all thanks to the great work that he's had facing live batters of recent year that we've seen at Citi Field, doing all of his independent work there. So should Kodai Senga look well and be healthy and obviously get his pitches where he needs them for one rehab outing, you're going to get at minimum one, and then he'll be back out there, meaning that Senga can return to this Mets team before even potentially the All-Star break should everything go well this weekend. If things do not go well, if the Mets want to give him a further look, then the likelihood of him getting a start before the Mets actually have the All-Star break feels far more slim. But Daniel Nunez, everybody, not so positive on the news front, so I want to see the excitement in the comments on Kodai Senga, because that is brilliant news. We need our ace back in this rotation yesterday, or weeks and weeks ago. Really, since he went down, the Mets have needed Kodai Senga plenty, but again, I mean, hey, I'm not going to complain whatsoever should that in fact become a reality. But now let's get into Daniel Nunez, because this is the unfortunate news. Nunez, who obviously did not start the year on time with the Mets, as he was still ramping up after a slow spring training process, coming back from that injury last year when he was nails for the Mets, but right around not even a 2.5-year ERA, north of 30 innings last season for the Mets veteran right-hander. But now we see this season Nunez, who was nails just a couple nights ago, sadly felt something in his elbow, and he is, in fact, on the shelf for potential Tommy John surgery. And when I say potential Tommy John surgery, it is not a complete lock yet. However, I'm kind of going to be surprised if it doesn't happen. Now, while he did a great job back that we saw Daniel Nunez in the past avoid Tommy John surgery in his career, he sustained it that we saw a couple years ago. He avoided Tommy John surgery over a season ago as well, kind of doing his best Christian Scott impression up until they couldn't push it any longer than they obviously have to do it. Very unfortunate for Nunez should this be the case, and he needs it the second time in his career. And Nunez not only has ridiculous velocity touching the high 90s on the gun with the fastball, but that slider when right is brilliant. The problem for Nunez is that slider really hasn't been right all season long, and that paired with obviously this very unfortunate reality that he now has that uncomfortability, you do have to wonder if that slider has not performed in direct part this season because of what I just alluded to each and every one of you, the fact that he has not found any consistency with it, and it's one inhale with the pain. So one way or another, everybody, sadly, as much as it frustrates me to say, it does appear that Daniel Nunez's season is already coming to a close unless they really get something positive in their second or third opinions that the Mets are getting right now. So Nunez, if this is it for the season, I'm wishing you the absolute best of your recovery. Terrible to see this. We've already seen multiple arms go down with either Tommy John or something along those lines from Danny Young, obviously, that we saw earlier. We saw Drew Smith before things really kickstarted this year. AJ Minter, not with his Tommy John, but still a season-ending injury. Griffin Canning's season-ending injury with the ruptured Achilles. I mean, the list goes on and on. I do not want to see Nunez in that category, but it appears to be looking that way as of now. But going on now, guys, from Daniel Nunez and Kodai Senga, and the big takeaway from your guy Wardy is the following. I'm very happy about Senga, very discouraged by Nunez. All the more reason why this Mets team needs to add big at the deadline, not only just for pitching, but in respective areas. And the good news, everybody, as we have some David Stearns remarks we'll get into shortly, but on top of that, we do have, going back over the past couple weeks, it's been widely reported that the Mets have been in the market in various avenues, whether it's for relief pitching, starting pitching, outfield help, potentially infield help, you name it. But a one constant per The Athletic, not only the Mets, but the Phillies alike, is that they're in the market for some really important high leverage relief options. And as we know, when it comes to high leverage, if Nunez ain't going to be that guy, there are an abundance of arms out there leading up to the deadline that will be made available, and one of which that I've been beating the drum on plenty because I think he makes endless sense for this team in more ways than one. As much as you may not like him as a human being, he has been an absolute star as a pitcher. That is none other than the dominant southpaw and Aroldis Chapman. If you guys want to know more on Wardy's thoughts regarding Chapman, check out previous content on the platform. Just look down more at our videos. You'll see Chapman on at least one of the thumbnails. We've broken him down and his game multiple times already, but Chapman is just one of many examples of what the Mets could find themselves actually looking to acquire at the deadline. And in case you guys are wondering, do the Mets have any connection to Chapman? They actually do, because David Stearns offered Aroldis Chapman an $8 million contract across 1 year to begin the 2024 season. He politely declined because he signed for $2 million more with the Pittsburgh Pirates, and that was traded to the Kansas City Royals mid-season last year and helped the Royals in what was a short but still an exciting playoff run for them, to say the least. But going on now, everybody, from talking about Kodai Senga and Daniel Nunez, let's see what Carlos Mendoza has to say a bit about the Simone Southpaw and Sean Manaea, as we have some key updates here.
Forgot to ask last night just about Sean Manaea. What did you hear about his outing yesterday?
Good. Felt good. I was just talking to him. Got his work through his pitches. Felt good. The biggest thing is just the follow up, right? And today he feels fine, feels normal. So he's got another one.
Do you guys? Oh, he's gonna have one more rehab start.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Would you like to get him in a game before the All-Star break in a big league game? Is that even a possibility at this point?
It is a possibility. Ideally, yes. But again, we're going to take it one day at a time, one out at a time. So he pitched yesterday. He's got another one, I think, on Tuesday. And that puts him, hopefully, for that last game before the break. So.
All right, guys, so what we just heard from Carlos Mendoza is basically the hope and the expectations that should everything go well after he has his next rehab start, which is currently slotted to be on Tuesday, barring changes of next week, that means that he will hopefully then return the day before the All-Star break, which, if I'm not mistaken, I believe is the 13th, everybody. And should that, in fact, become a reality, be on the lookout, because I will be having a very hectic weekend out of state that weekend. But as I'm flying back, I'm hoping that I'll be able to cover things. Should I make his debut? That's to be determined, though, everybody. But Sean Manaea, the Samoan Southpaw, to say this Mets rotation needs him back is an understatement. We need stability so bad right now. And the lack of stability is not only hurting the quality of their starting pitching now, that being in the Mets, but it's most certainly taxing their bullpen so much so that, again, we're just constantly going with a bunch of these retreads. And then these guys you never heard of, or these guys that you wish to forget, to come out there to eat an inning or so just for the sake of actually eating innings. David Stearns has been very savvy and trying to make these respective decisions, but there's no denying that he's facing kind of his first true big uphill battle, with the exception of how the Mets started last season, 11 games below 500. But speaking of the Mets president, let's hear some key remarks from David Stearns on the topic of Daniel Nunez especially.
Just on Nunez, it was announced as a sprain. Do you guys have reason to believe there's a partial or full ligament tear there?
So there is not a full tear. There is ligament involvement, and so this is one of those where, we're going to have to see multiple doctors' opinions, go through it. This one's a little bit gut-wrenching because this is a guy who's worked incredibly hard to get back to this point, and for him to feel what he did last night, have to go through this again, it's tough.
Yeah, I think that wording said it all with how not only David Stearns feels, but the organization overall, and the very unfortunate and honestly devastating news in the case of Daniel Nunez and his injury. Again, I was really looking forward to Nunez potentially being a high leverage weapon for the Mets to consider this season. Instead, it's a season filled with injuries yet again, and now the Mets are in more dire need than ever to find reinforcements for their bullpen, and fast. And when speaking on the pitching staff in particular a bit more, David Stearns said in separate interview, everybody, he said the following. I'm just going to pull it up for you because I think it'll be easier this way, everybody. There was a couple different ways I want to go about this, but let's just go ahead. Let's hop over to the SNY X page real quick, and let's go down to the key quotes from Stearns I want to share with each and every one of you. We don't have to go through all these post-game player interviews because we know it's kind of the same thing usually there. Very rarely do you get a key quote that's separate from, what you typically get, which is, the normal, we played good, we played bad, you got to be better, that kind of stuff, yada, 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 hoorah. But as we see here from David Stearns, everybody, almost there, because, of course, we got a lot of clips to go through as to why we got to do it, apparently. What we also got to do is to get into David Stearns' remarks. And this is what David Stearns had to say more. Let's get into some key takeaways from his presser this past day.
I think the last time that we spoke to it here in this setting that you said you're entering kind of a period of evaluation with the trade deadline, a little over a month away. Has anything, since then, you guys still haven't played very good baseball during that point. Has that period caused you to rethink some of the fundamental things that you thought about this roster as far as what you may need getting closer than it was, I think maybe 2.5 weeks ago, maybe when we spoke to you?
I think you continue to learn, and you're right, we haven't played well over this last stretch. It's continued longer than I would have anticipated in terms of prolonged stretch of not playing very good baseball consistently. So you do learn from that. I think it's natural for opinions about certain segments of the team to change when you go through a 2.5, 3 week stretch like we've gone through. My overarching opinion of the team remains the same. I think we're a good team. I think we have good players. I think we're certainly much better than we've played over the last 3 weeks. And I think everyone in our clubhouse would agree with that. But I'd also be foolish not to look at the last 2.5 weeks and recognize that, we haven't played well, and there are probably areas where we need to get better, whether that's internally, players improving, either players that are here or players who are in AAA, or external reinforcements.
That was a really important final quote by David Stearns, saying that it would be foolish of me basically to disregard this and think that we don't need to not only make in-house options but external options as well when it comes to adding players. And we all know, and I know that this is probably hard for some of you Mets fans to fathom, because you're probably saying in the comments already, oh, here comes Sleepy Stearns again, or here comes dumpster diving Stearns, and give us step right up and give us a whole lot of nothing. And then you come to the MLB trade deadline and you get yourself another Paul Blackburn, right? And that's not what you want as a Mets fan, but nor is that what David Stearns wants. And I think with the pressure is certainly going to mount, and we are going to see a David Stearns that's going to be more aggressive than he has been in year one as Mets president. Again, I know, I understand this might be hard for some of you guys to fathom because you're already very down on David, depending on who you talk to. I don't fall in that category too much, but I do know that like Stearns and like everyone else, he is not perfect. So what can he do to try to make this team and get them right from their current imperfections? That is by going out and making the proper external moves that is deemed best for this organization. The fact that the Mets need multiple starters, I mean, you can make the argument for at least one, if not multiple, certainly there. On the bullpen end, we know that they need more high leverage options. On the offensive end, they could certainly utilize another key outfielder, and at minimum, maybe someone else for the infield if Ronnie Mauricio doesn't run away with things more than what he otherwise has so far this season. Things to bear in mind, but David Stearns is going to obviously be diligent in these respective areas leading up to the deadline, and expect a lot more rumors and a lot more news to break down that we will have for you guys right away on the platform as things follow suit over the next couple weeks leading up to said deadline. To expand more here on Mr. David Stearns, he had the following to say, and it's the following here. I also do apologize, folks, for the lack of balance of the volume. I currently have my volume all the way up here to play for you guys, but sometimes it's just not going to be completely accurate. I know you hate it, and I apologize, but bear with me.
It's happened rapidly. So I was like, nothing shocks me. But yeah, it's happened fast. We have to react and adjust, and no one's going to feel sorry for us. There are other teams out there who have dealt with extensive injuries throughout the course of the season as well. We've got to adjust. We've got to play a little bit better. And from a front office standpoint, we've got to do our best to support this team where we can.
Is coming off maybe the best start of his year. Just what are you seeing from him, and is he starting to figure it out a little bit?
Yeah, that was probably the best start he's had in AAA with us, which was great to see. And I think we saw, as much as anything, a little bit of a mindset shift where he just got into attack mode and wasn't trying to be perfect with every single pitch, just realized this stuff is really good and said, I'm going to go out there and challenge these guys and beat them, and he did. And so I think that was some great positive reinforcement for him, and we are looking forward to him continuing to bring that mentality to starts going forward.
Those are David Stearns' latest remarks for Brandon Sproat after going 6 shutout innings in his latest Syracuse start that we saw. Sproat was initially speculated to potentially be the Game 3 starter between the Mets and the Yankees this Sunday at Citi Field. However, Will Salmon of The Athletic has since refuted that, and he broke down what the expected starters are, but I will get into that in a second. First, I want to show you guys the final remarks to share from David Stearns.
And just on the younger players, specifically McLean, a lot of your other prospects have gotten to AAA and seem to have hit some sort of wall when they get there. He hasn't. To what extent does that maybe earn him some sort of benefit of the doubt, or maybe a quicker ride up here than, had he been struggling?
Yeah, so look, results matter. And to his credit, he's competed and largely had success there. There are still elements of his game, and he's very aware of it, that we want him to work on. And I think he's doing that and meeting those challenges. And so I would say we are altogether pleased with how he's developing this year at AAA.
Okay, folks, so that does it for the Stearns remarks. The final thing I have to say is that David did say that he's really not at all interested in calling up a top prospect, meaning Sproat, McLean. That top three for a spot start. And he made known that, especially given the fact that there isn't a lock of a guarantee basically to get consistent reps beyond one turn of the order because of guys like Shamanai and Kodai Senga returning, that does go in hand with the decision making. And that I do understand and agree with. I'm not at all opposed to not wanting to rush up your top prospect at the pitching end because of a pressure cooker current situation where there's a problem. You want him up when he's ready and where, it's going to be something where he's actually in the rotation to stay versus activating a man on the 40 man just to have him spot start. I'm not at all in favor of just doing the spot start. That's actually why I've suggested on the platform for the past 2 weeks at least, while the Mets have had all their pitching woes, why not consider one of these starters and have them more than just a spot starter? But given the recent success of guys like Blade Tidwell as well, who I think Mets fans are starting to warm up to slightly, not that we think he is going to be a lock of a rotation option or anything like that, but knowing that he at least can be a formidable piece to eat some innings for the Mets, I think that along with Shamanai and Kodai Senga's hopefully soon return is exactly why David Stearns has yet to really dabble in the market for those top prospects. But when we do talk about these top prospects, everybody, we cannot hesitate from talking about Mr. Noel McLean, because as you guys can see right here, Noel McLean was fantastic yet again in his latest outing that we saw there for the Syracuse Mets. He goes 5 innings of 7 hit, 1 walk, 2 earned run baseball, 10 strikeouts, 10 punchies. If I'm not mistaken, that's the most strikeouts McLean has had at the Syracuse level this year, or close to. 89 pitches and is down to a 2.33 ERA, has right around a 2.8 ERA in Syracuse, because his combined ERA from the Rumble Ponies in AA and Syracuse at AAA is what you guys are seeing there. But Noel McLean has looked absolutely fantastic, everybody. This is why we continue to bark up the tree, which is the Noel McLean tree. The man from OSU that was once called Cowboy Ohtani, known for his great bat and pitching ability, but he has been transformed as solely a pitcher the past 1.5 to 2 years, and he is developing brilliantly. Look at that nasty sweeper too. Oh, baby, I love to see that. Noel McLean has some of the best stuff in all the Mets minor leagues, and McLean continues to be rock solid every single time out there. Again, you have to wonder just how much reps does he need at the Syracuse Mets level of giving 5-6 inning outings every time out there of 3 or 2 earned run baseball or less. Because for context, everybody, Noel McLean has not given up more than 2 earned runs in over a calendar month. The last time that Noel McLean actually gave up, if I'm not mistaken, 2+ earned runs or so is going all the way back to right around mid-May, May 15th or so. So Noel McLean has absolutely been doing his job brilliantly, everybody. And to expand a little bit more on McLean, as you guys can see here, this is courtesy of TJ Stats, Nastico on X, who does a great job with these individual player breakdowns. As you guys can see in the Stuff Plus, which gives you a grade on a scale of 100 if you're above or below a below average as a pitcher based on your pitches. And out of the entire arsenal that I utilized, with the curveball that sat right around 80, the sweeper at 86, the cutter at 87, and the changeup at 87, he was above league average in every single pitch that he threw. So love to see that from Noel McLean, everybody. And that's what you got there in Nolan. But we do have some other prospects that we have to highlight in this one, everybody, including Mr. Douglas Orellana. Now, the Douglas Orellana highlights I'm showing you guys, I'm kind of cheating. I couldn't really find many on X or across the webs all that well that were at least for decent quality, especially in AA, which was the case for Orellana, who was with the Cyclones initially this year. And then we saw AA. I mean, Orellana's has been skyrocketing right through the Mets minor leagues this year, and understandably so, because if you guys don't know Douglas Orellana, let me put you on to our guy here. Douglas, who is one of my pitching contributor Isaac Rothman's favorite pitchers in the Mets minors, and for good reason, has been nasty. And because he's been nasty, he's been officially moved up to the AAA Syracuse level. And the highlights that you guys see goes back to player development camp, going back to spring training, facing live batters was the case there, and the Nationals that he was facing there at the time. But 31 innings thus far that we have seen for Orellana, he's been insane. 17 hits to 11 walks, 6 total earned runs allowed, 44 punchies, and 1.74 ERA. Fun fact, that's right around the same ERA that Jonathan also has this season. But Douglas Orellana has been one of the best quality young right-handed options that the Mets have had in the minor leagues. He dominated that we saw for the Cyclones. He dominated for the Rumble Ponies, and now he's hopefully going to dominate here for the Syracuse Mets. And knowing that the Mets obviously have utilized a lot of arms out of Syracuse as of late, making this aggressive call isn't overly shocking to see. Orellana has really, really plus stuff, everybody. And I'd love to know your initial thoughts and reactions to him being promoted to AAA in the comments down below. Because Orellana isn't the only very impressive reliever there that was just called up to AAA that, you know, really looks like he could impact his team as soon as the season, because that's how good his stuff plays up. But another pitcher here, and again, exclude the Douglas Orellana graphic because I'm showing a different highlight here just for a second. But as you guys can see, this is Mr. Alex Carrillo. And Alex Carrillo has been fantastic in the Mets minor leagues as well. He pitched a perfect inning with 3 strikeouts for AAA Syracuse this past night. He generated 5 swings and misses in that inning as well. And he topped out on 100 and sat right around the mid-80s or so on the slider. Shout out to Joe DeMeo for some of the information on that one, courtesy of the Prospect Guru from SNY. But to further expand on this, again, guys, you have multiple pieces of high quality, high octane velocity there in the minor leagues. And these are, again, guys that we can expect to see sooner rather than later at the big league level, should they be consistent. Because, again, the Mets need as much help as they can possibly get, and they might just have some of the answers still in-house right now, but are just naturally getting ramped up and worked up because these are young, some heralded prospects for the Mets, others not so heralded, but can still be impactful, certainly at present day value. So that is what you got there on the prospect front, everybody. But as we hop back to the main slide, and if you look diving deep into everybody for running that for a hot second. If you guys got a little jump scare by your guy Wardy showing you guys the first 10 seconds of my Moo ad, I sincerely apologize for that. But all the more reason why you guys got to check out Moo, link down below, and thank you again kindly for doing exactly that. But as we continue our discussion today, everybody, not only do we have to break down what's happening there on the Mets minor leagues, but we do still have some updates to share on the front of guys, including Jesse Winker. So let's go ahead and do exactly that, everybody, because as you guys can see, Jesse Winker had himself a day baby. In case you guys don't know, Jesse Winker is really, really close to returning this Mets team finally from his rehab stint. Winker's been out the past couple months, really, since he went down in St. Louis. So everybody, we saw in St. Louis on the first play, and the only play he tried to make in the outfield, tried to make a throw. It becomes a grade 2 strain right away, oblique strain. He's out. Winker, though, ramping up, looking good. He had himself an RBI double after hitting himself a tank last night that we saw for the Rumble Ponies as well. And Double-A, Jesse Winker, Mr. Winky, we love to see it. And Winker loves being a New York Met, and he had himself a fantastic full interview that you guys can check out on SNY's YouTube channel. But I'm going to show you guys a snippet right here to just, again, further show you guys how much Jesse Winker loves and appreciates being a New York Met, and how much we can't wait not only get that lefty back in this lineup and platoon DH situations, but also a guy that just brings the vibes and brings all the kind of moxie that you want in a playoff club like this New York Mets team. Let's listen in and see what Jesse Winker has to say.
Electricity in the crowd. Watching back that home run, the electricity in the crowd, it still reverberates.
Yeah, I mean, from the time I got traded to the Mets, it was the coolest baseball I've ever been a part of in my life. You know, the beauty of that is that this is a new season and anything can happen. It's like I said this earlier, it's like a chapter in a book. You just flip to the next chapter, and now we're at this one, 2025. Yeah. So it's been fun so far, and you know, I'm definitely eager to get back and, you know, see all the guys and put that uniform on.
Shout out to Jesse, one of my personal favorites to hate during his time as a Red, as a Mariner, among others, but he just has always had this fun back and forth with Mets fans. Again, a guy that you love to hate as a villain. Now he's not a villain. He is our friend. He's no longer a foe. Jesse Winker, looking forward to getting you back ASAP, and it does appear the Mets are easily going to get Winker back before the All-Star break at this rate. I don't see why that wouldn't happen. But a guy who will not be returning any sooner than until after the All-Star break, given what Carlos Mendoza said this past day or so, is Brooks Raley, if I'm not mistaken. Raley, who's pitched 5 scoreless innings that we have seen thus far in his rehab, looking dominant, striking out at least a pair every single time out there. Raley, who's expected to be impactful big time for this Mets bullpen throughout the heart of summer. He will be returning this Mets team, but not until we're going to see until probably after the All-Star break as of now. And when we get on to the final news here, before we get into more on our prospect breakdown and wrap up the show with our Subway Series preview, Will Salmon came out with a piece this past day, which has to do with the following. What are the Mets going to do with their rotation after Paul Blackburn goes down? Well, folks, we have the reality. Justin Hageman is going to be towing the rubber there as that main bulk reliever / starter for the Mets in Game 1 against Marcus Stroman against the Yankees. In Game 2, you know you have Frankie Montas there facing off against Carlos Rodon. But then in Game 3, you're going to have Brandon Waddell, the southpaw, who's honestly been rock solid for the Mets when called upon for the most part. Waddell's going to get likely the bulk relief outing there that Sunday, facing off against whoever he's going to face off there for the Yankees. So the Mets, a big question mark filled with uncertainty is a rotation in their second and only final Subway Series of the year. So after not performing all too well in the Bronx, where he dropped 2 out of 3, Juan Soto couldn't hit a lick to save his life outside of obviously getting on base with a bunch of walks. Now fast forward all these weeks later, and the Mets have no rotation whatsoever as they face off against this New York Yankee squad. So yeah, that's exactly why I wish a McLean, a Ton, or a Sproat would be here, especially Sproat was actually perfectly slotted to pitch this Sunday based on his alignment in AAA. But I digress. It isn't happening as of now, and whether you guys like it or not, this is what David Stearns is going to continue to roll with. Again, I'm sure the discourse is going to be fine and happy in the comments down below. Cue the sarcasm. But to go on from talking about what Will Salmon had to report there through The Athletic, everybody, now let's get on to a bit more there in the minor leagues. Because as you guys know, the Mets have been absolutely cooking in the minor leagues. They've had so many things going right in the minor leagues, between dominant pitching to having multiple minor league teams with 50+ wins on the season. You got to pat yourself on the back if you're the New York Mets and the great job that you have done on the player development front thus far this season, at least there in the minor leagues. And this past night that we saw at the Port St. Lucie level, how did they fare in their latest game, everybody? Well, the Port St. Lucie Mets actually had their game postponed due to inclement weather. So we're going to now advance to the Brooklyn Cyclones to see how Brooklyn fared and their latest matchup, everybody. And the Cyclones, as we see here, how do they fare, everybody? They lost 4-1 to Hartford, unfortunately. And the results are the following, everybody. Offensively, they did not have a lot going. Jesus Baez ripped his 9th double this season, but that's really all she wrote. Collins had a pair of hits at DH, but that's literally it. Gurdon won 2.2 innings of 1 earned run baseball, 5 walks. Hate to see that. And then, not loving the pitching too much. Diaz got a little exposed there. Was that Joel Diaz that got exposed? Yes, it was. Joel Diaz, who's still getting adjusted there since we moved up from Port St. Lucie to Brooklyn this season. He gave up 3 runs and 2 earned runs and 4 innings of work there that we saw at the Rumble Pony level. Double A, everybody. Let's get to Double A. And at Double A, how did they fare in their latest game? That being the Rumble Ponies with 50+ wins on the season. Well, the Rumble Ponies in this one, let's see, everybody. Just pulling it up right now. Where are you, Rumble Ponies? Are you rumbling? Are you stumbling? Are you going to victory? Which one is it going to be? In the case of the Rumble Ponies, they actually won. Finally, obviously, that they won over Hartford, this time by a final score of 6-2. Whereas Brooklyn, we saw they did not fare too well against the Renegades there at a different league level. But we see they beat the Yard Goats, that being the Rumble Ponies, 6-2. And the offensive standouts were Ryan Clifford smacking his 14th home run of the season, everybody. Things you absolutely love to see. Shout out to Ryan Clifford. That's great to see. His 14th bomb of the year. And that's all she wrote, really. No one else hit too much. Jesse Winker had himself an RBI and DH, as I mentioned, and a pair of walks. And pitching-wise, we saw Gieber go 3 innings of 1 earned run baseball. Cornelia allow 1 earned run on 2 innings. And Foster go 2 shutty, who's now down to a 1.25 ERA. Love to see that. At the Syracuse Mets level, there was one man who was absolutely dominating with the power, and that is a man who has now hit at least 4 home runs, if not 5, over his past week stretch of baseball or so. Guys, let's actually hype up finally Drew Gilbert, who's finding his swing. Long overdue, but Drew Gilbert, everybody, Mets top outfield prospect, went 3 for 5 with 3 RBIs. 2 ding-dongs, and this one, Drew Gilbert is up to 9 home runs on the season. Luis Angel Acuna went 1 for 5 with a run scored. 7-4 was the victory for the Mets in this one over the Red Sox there. We also saw the notables, Pablo Reyes, another big game for him. Another day where Pablo Reyes hits a home run. 3 RBIs for Pablo. He's been raking as of late since being back with this Mets team. Jose Oscar had a hit and a run scored. And pitching-wise, Noah McLean was fantastic. Carrillo was awesome. Orellana did give up a pair of runs, actually, in his Syracuse debut today. I did not see that prior, so I apologize for not making note of that, everybody. But regardless, that was Orellana's literally first outing in Syracuse for his young career. He's going to be just fine. I look forward to seeing more of Orellana and the impact that he will have potentially for this Mets bullpen sooner than later. But a guy that could impact this Mets bullpen soon as well is Dominic Hamill, who's been doing a much greater job there that we've seen in multi-inning relief at the AAA Syracuse level than he was as a starter. But guys, now before we wrap up the show, let's get into previewing what you guys and gals need to know here in regards to the following, and that is that yes, the Mets are playing the New York Yankees today. They have a big Subway Series. So how are the Mets going to fare in the Subway Series? Great question. I actually just came out with a latest segment this past day on the New York Post Sports YouTube channel that you guys can check out should you have interest. Myself, Brandon London, our host, former NFL player, and Ryan Garcia, who was a Yankees representative in our conversation as we broke down kind of what you need to know about that series, who we think is going to win, and everything in between. But expand more on that, everybody. You know, we do know that Marcus Stroman is making his return to Citi Field. He's towing the rubber here for this Friday game that we're going to see. After this Friday, between Marcus Stroman and what's going to be Justin Hageman getting the bulk of the innings eaten, you got Frankie Montas in his 6 ERA, but he was tipping pitches, Frankie, apparently. So we'll see if he can get that adjusted right against his former team there, the New York Yankees, with Carlos Rodon, the dominant southpaw, and his sub-3 ERA is handling things for Game 2. And in Game 3, you got Max Fried, again, with his just over 2 ERA, one of the best pitchers in baseball this year. The Mets do not have an easy task at all in Games 2 and 3 pitching matchup-wise. On paper, they are looking like a lopsided batting practice affair for the Mets. And for the Yankees, we'll see, obviously, if Fried will dominate or if the Mets can beat up on a Max Fried, who they've done very well against many times over the years. But obviously, Fried had the Mets' upper hand back at Yankee Stadium a month or so ago. Let's see if the Mets can now have the upper hand over Max Fried, in which they performed very well against Max Fried that we have seen there at Citi Field, in particular during his time with the Atlanta Braves. And the New York Yankees have not been playing at all their best baseball over the past month. They, like the Mets, have been playing very uninspiring baseball, and it had a long losing skid, a 6+ game losing skid, just around the same time as the Mets did. And now the Yankees are coming off of being swept somehow, some way by the Toronto Blue Jays, who just leapfrogged them in first place, doing their best Mets impression when the Mets lost 2 out of 3 against the Phillies in Philly and lost first place at that time. There are a lot of similarities right now between the Mets and the Yankees, actually, when it comes to their lack of production. But when you think of the importance of this series for the Mets, who lost that first series, Subway Series, against this club, when you think of Juan Soto trying to have a key moment potentially against his former club, all the more reason to suggest that this should hopefully be a more entertaining series than the first one. I expect the pitching to be all over the place. I have absolutely no clue what to expect, but what I'm hoping for and expecting is the Mets to at least take 2 out of 3 in this big and final Subway Series matchup, at least for the regular season. Mets fans, let me know your Subway Series predictions in the comments down below. My offensive standout for this matchup, everybody, if it ain't going to be Juan Soto, as much as I want to go with the Juan and only in Juan, I'm looking at these lefty-lefty matchups in particular, everybody, and when I look at lefty-lefty matchups, and when I think of guys that can rake, it's really hard to not think of a guy like Brandon Nimmo again. So I'm thinking about Brandon Nimmo. I'm thinking about Francisco Lindor, if he could find some quality at-bats from that right side of the plate as well. We will see what happens, everybody. But again, thank you all so much for watching. This was our latest Big Mets Update segment. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe on your way out of here. Let me know all those key reactions and thoughts in the comments down below. And I'll see you all later today for post-game coverage at the time of this video coming out for Game 1 of that 3-game set between the Mets and the Yankees. This weekend, I will be then in attendance, everybody, for that Saturday game there at Citi Field with a lot of people that you might know. My guy Pat Hassey, who covers the Yankees, that you guys know you love to hate. We got Giraffe Neck Mark. We got James Shiano. We got my guy Richie from Jets Media and Knicks Media. We got a whole group pulling up this Saturday, everybody. Be there or be square. See you guys at Citi Field, and let's go Mets, baby. Peace out.